Hey guys, welcome to the definitive ranking of The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. So this one's
sequel.
Another sequel. Well, yeah, another sequel.
Oh yeah, 2 in a row.
This is one that I feel like we've done a lot of material on this game.
Totally, yeah. We basically 100%ed it on the channel recently. I played it a lot at the marathon. You've played it at the marathon, right?
Yep.
So, and it's not been that long since it's come out.
It's been 7 years now.
Well, yeah, but I feel like some of the other games we've done, it's been like there's been significant gaps.
Yeah.
We haven't played it, and sometimes we're revisiting it. This one is like, I feel like I've been in the game. Like, my largest gap of not playing this game was like 4 years or something.
Okay.
And then now it's been years of experiencing this game.
Okay, so this is not one like some of them. Like, this is kind of fresh.
Extremely fresh, yeah.
In fact, I didn't replay this at all.
Me either, because I played it like all the times we mentioned, I've played it a bunch of times in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
In every various way. Like when we did our playthrough on the YouTube, it was more, we're kind of enjoying the story and collecting things, and then at the marathon, like doing more straightforward, getting some mai-mais, I guess,
Yep.
But so I've kind of experienced it in a couple different ways recently too.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so there's no hype to like replaying it.
Right. Yeah, I hear you on that. It's one of those. I said this about Majora's Mask, but I think it's probably even more so with this. It's so hard to like not compare this with A Link to the Past. And to me, that starts right away with the world of the game.
Yeah.
Because it literally takes place in the same overworld.
Yes.
Not that that's the only aspect of the world, but
it's clearly going for, this place, here it is again. You know?
And I remember first playing this, the nostalgia of just going through Hyrule was overwhelming a little bit. It was like, because it was the same map, but it's like, oh, all right, they cut down some trees over here. There's now a path between Link's house and like where the Smith's house is, where Gully's house is. And it's like, oh, this wasn't here before.
That was really cool to see like, oh, there's some new like people here, different people. It's been like 100 years or whatever they say.
It's always 100 years.
It's always it's such a nice round number.
100 or 10,000, nothing in between.
That's why I scored it pretty high, because in terms of the world, it's very similar, but also like from a gameplay perspective, it's still got kind of that open, non-linear aspect to it. In fact, even more so with the later part of the game, because you can kind of go to any of the dungeons, any of the areas, for the most part, in any sort of way you want. So I had it pretty high in that regard. I think it didn't fully get there because it was kind of a repeat.
Yep.
And then like, I don't know, I also just like the world of A Link to the Past a little bit more. It's I'm not trying to directly compare it to that. It's kind of, we're trying to compare it to all the games,
right.
But like you said, it's kind of hard not to.
Yeah.
But I sort of liked the more the Link to the Past world still feels like groundbreaking, and also like totally new and thrilling. You know what I mean? Whereas this feels like, it's a nice trip down memory lane.
Right. Yeah, it definitely feels that way. I would say though, I do like this the world here. It's filled with I think some more colorful characters, because there's a little bit more. I like the sages. I
was gonna say, like, I kind of liked. It's a trade-off that I like, because part of what I like about the A Link to the Past world is like, I do something we kind of differed on, was I liked kind of the crypticness of a lot of the dialogue and the weirdness of it, and it's so, you just meet these weird people and you don't fully know what's going on there. Like, you meet a guy who's turned into a tree and he's just like, and here, it's got a little bit more colorfulness in terms of like, a lot of the characters have personalities. Like, instead of the maidens, you have each individual sage. It feels like they took in some stuff from like Ocarina of Time a little bit.
Right, where you meet the character in the regular world, and then you meet him again later in Lorule as a sage.
Yeah.
You awaken them, and it's they're not just some random maiden who you don't know who they are. Like they are in A Link to the Past.
Not to say there are quirky characters in A Link to the Past also, but this I feel like, everyone has kind of a quirk. Like I think of back to, in A Link to the Past, there's just like a boy who gives you a net. Mm-hmm. But in this, it's like it's got to be the bee guy, and it's a guy obsessed with catching bees in a net. Mm-hmm. Like everything has that extra added layer.
Yeah, I gave it a 4. I stopped short of giving it a 5 for similar reasons. In particular, Lorule, like the actual world, it didn't do the same thing that the Dark World did to me. I feel where one, it's segmented. It's not you can't actually navigate.
Yeah, you can actively go to any area at that point, but you do have to do like the game kind of like suggests maybe like, hey, you're in this area, you should probably do this area.
Yeah,
it's like open world, but each area is like its own level.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense actually. Yeah, and I feel the Dark World's a little more special to me, and it's kind of a retread.
It's a big moment when you first go to the Dark World, or like even the second time you go to the Dark World. In this, it doesn't have. You do have that cool long cut scene where you go through the wall, and it's like, ooh, that's kind of cool, but like it doesn't really have the same impact.
Yeah.
Though I do like some of the designs they go for, especially with some of the new characters that they have. So, yeah, it's still really good.
Yeah. Moving on, let's talk about the art style here.
Yeah, well, that goes into what I was just saying. I guess I like some of the there is new stuff brought to this game that's not in A Link to the Past. That's really good. Like just some of the designs with Lorule Castle. I think of in like Hilda, and Ravio. Like I like that sort of stuff. But in general, I don't hate it, but I don't really like the overall art style of the game.
Okay.
Because I think it is cool to see the world again, and it's in 3D, but there's something about it that it doesn't really do much to me. I've made this comparison a lot, but it reminds me of New Super Mario Brothers.
Okay, no, that's a very good comparison.
It's like, yeah, it's in 3. It just feels uninspired to me a little bit.
Okay.
When I look at the old pixel art of A Link to the Past, and it's incredible, and you're like, wow, it still holds up to this day. And again, this doesn't look bad, but it doesn't feel like they shot for much more than make them 3D guys,
Yeah, actually, your comparison to this new Super Mario Bros. is right on point.
Yeah.
And I like that. I don't love it, but I like it because like it's not. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel with this.
Yeah, there's nothing really wrong with it.
No, it's good. In fact, I think it's really good. It's
well, you gave it a 3.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it's good for what it is, I should say.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
and no, there's nothing egregious about it. There's nothing. I like the. I think it was in like. There's some artwork where it shows the official art from A Link to the Past, and it shows A Link Between Worlds, and there is some similarities. It did get a little more cartoony looking, more anime looking, I should say.
Okay.
But no, I do like the art style. I would say there's, I'm a sucker for official artwork. Not really that much for this. You get all the sages, and you get some Yuga stuff, and that's it.
Yeah.
None of the bosses have anything.
None of the characters.
All the sages have their own artwork.
Well, I mean, like the bouldering guy doesn't have or like the bird guy doesn't have.
I don't
artwork.
think Saharasla has any artwork.
Well, that's too bad. Oh, he's got to have something, right?
I don't think so.
No,
maybe
that's too bad. He deserves it.
Actually, he probably does.
Yeah,
I know the sages do.
He's
Gully's like looking all like that. I think Gully's mom and dad have artwork.
Yes.
Whole family.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it gets the job done. Let's say.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the story. There was actually a lot more to this story than most Zelda games, I would say.
Yeah, I would say it reminds me of. I mean, I gave it and a pretty average score, and it does remind me of. I think I've already said this about other games, but like Spirit Tracks or something like that, where it's paced really well for the most part, or it keeps moving along. I wouldn't say Spirit Tracks was paced that well, but it keeps moving along. There's something going on usually, and it tells a pretty straightforward story with some like little extra things there. But for the most part, it's just for me, it's a really solid story.
Okay.
I do like kind of the twist in the ending. That's maybe the most interesting thing about it.
With Ravio?
With Ravio and Hilda, I guess.
Yeah.
But overall, like, I like it. I think this one is paced well. Like, especially, I like kind of the different times you encounter Yuga and stuff like that. Like, in the beginning, it's got a good setup in the intro, kind of a good midway point with him, too. And then a good final boss encounter, too. But yeah, other than that, it's not like, it doesn't have to be that exciting, but it moves along nice.
There's not like, a lot of Zelda games like A Link to the Past is one, or like Ocarina, where there's these giant gaps of like nothing happening whatsoever with the story. Like this, I think, has a lot of like little tidbits throughout. Like each time you go to Lorule, like in the new region,
I guess you just kind of get a descriptor. Like it's not too much. Like,
yep. Well, then you meet because the sages themselves have more character. So like, and they give you some tidbits after you beat each of the dungeons in Lorule.
Yeah.
And there's a few like strange, like the little tidbit I like. You go to Ravio's shop and there's no sand rod later on.
Oh yeah.
And then you see, is it Orin? Is it the guy that has this?
Oh, Svala.
Asfala.
Yeah.
Orin? Who's Orin? Is there an Orin?
Isn't that the Zora
okay.
queen? I could be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe this is one thing about the world that we everybody knows Gully. But
some of the sages
Irene?
are less cool.
Can we name them? Irene,
Gully,
Orin.
Is
there Ceres?
Ceres? That sounds like one of them.
Is that the blue girl at the beginning?
Yes.
She's not a sage though.
I don't know.
What's the Rosso?
Rosso. He's got Normine.
Yeah. Orin.
I think
Irene.
we did it. Yeah.
Impa.
Yeah.
Okay, and Zelda is one.
Bam. See, we didn't need to replay it.
Yeah. Okay.
Asfala, yeah. So he's got the sand rod, and he's like, I feel powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. You see him early on in the game, and then like I love after you beat was that Thieves Town or Blind's Hide? I forgot what it's called in this one. Little Ravio's little sidekick character. I forgot.
Shiro.
All right, we know all the names here. Or you do at least. It comes and grabs the sand rod and becomes available.
Yeah.
Like a little. Not that that's part of the storyline, but it does add up a little bit.
I would say it just gives you some morsels. It's not like I feel like in A Link to the Past or something. There's just there's even less, but it's like what they do give you is like so mysterious that it's kind of interesting. Whereas in this, it's just kind of like you come to an area and Hilda's like, "This is the forest area." It's pretty spooky, and it's like, okay, and she's just kind of like, it is cool, but
and Hilda's character as a whole is pretty mysterious too, because like
that's true. Yeah,
is she a good guy? Is she a bad guy? She has like a heel turn and then a face turn. Like,
right, like Ravio kind of like re-face turns her.
Yeah,
all that kind of happens though, like right in the end. Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. Like,
well, Hilda first appears in Lorule, like she saves you. So she's, Hilda's a very interesting character, and she's a good addition.
She is, and I like I said, I think Yuga is a solid kind of like underling guy.
Yuga, he's okay. I'm not gonna give him. I don't think he's solid. I think he's okay.
You don't think he's solid?
No,
okay.
I think he's one of the below average villains. I think, not that there's a high standard in the Zelda series. I think, But I feel we'll get to that when we talk about bosses a little bit. But I mean, it
Oh,
does go
okay.
into the story. But let's move on for the time being. Let's move on to pacing and progression. So I gave it right in the middle. I gave it a 3.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I know it was one of the big, like, almost like gimmicks of this game was how it progresses once you get into low roll, because they wanted to. I think that it was like we're changing the conventions of the Zelda series. This was with Skyward Sword, and it bled into this, and it was like, yeah, do things in every. Well, this was sort of what A Link to the Past was like to begin with, but this one was even more so, and that's fun. Although I think it left, like, depending on the order you did the dungeons in, I kind of feel like once you're in low roll, all the dungeons are about the same level of difficulty. Except
for the most
the
part.
ice ruins seemed a little more difficult.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Because it's way up there when it's a pain in the butt to get to. You know, talk about the world. That area of the world sucks.
I don't like
Maybe the worst part of any Zelda game.
the platforming there.
The
is
overworld
awful.
is atrocious.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a more complex dungeon. Not too complex, but it's just bulkier compared to everything else in the game. And you get a little confused with the different floors. You don't know where to go. Anyway, but I point that one out because, like, everything else, it's like the game actually gets easier as you progress because you get stronger.
You get more powered up. Yeah.
And that's a little odd. There's no RPG elements to this where, like in Breath of the Wild or something, where like if you beat it doesn't matter what dungeons you beat in order, but like it doesn't progress in difficulty, like give you higher level, you know, or anything like that.
Yeah, I would pretty much agree with that. I still feel like the pacing wise, it moves along great. Like it is very reminiscent of A Link to the Past. That's what stopped me from going like 5 on it, is that I do feel like it has that. But I still like that you can go wherever and do whatever order, because in all the different playthroughs I've ever done now, it does usually end up, depending on what you're trying to do, go a different way and stuff like that. And there's a lot of optional things you can do.
Right.
So, like, I still feel like it's really good, despite that.
I actually think the intro is a notable step back from A Link to the Past. Like
that's true, yeah.
You go to the smith's house, you got to get the sword, you deliver the sword, you got to talk to Impa, you got to like examine all the paintings or wait. There's a lot of like weird, like fetchy kind of like go here then here then. It doesn't take that long.
It's not too bad compared.
It's 10 minutes or whatever, and then you're at the sanctuary, and but like comparatively in A Link to the Past, it's 15 seconds into the game
right away.
You're like, where do I go, kind of thing. And
yeah, it doesn't hold a candle to that really, but I still feel like it gets to the point compared to other games of that time, other Zelda games from before it gets to the point pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And you still have that kind of cool opening, and then you get, to the dungeons pretty quickly.
Right.
So, yeah, I think there's I think they could have done it better, for sure. I think they could have upped the difficulty in the other dungeons that you beat in various ways.
And the progression, there's also a story progression too as well. We talked about it a little bit in story, but like with Yuga, you get that introduction early on, and then like you see Yuga throughout the course of the game a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's the boss in the first dungeon, and I think that like that the story progression is pretty solid too.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I was getting at when I was saying like there's a little bit of it throughout the game.
Yeah, I think with Yuga especially, you get him kind of in the beginning, not necessarily in the middle, and then in the end.
Yeah, depending what you consider the middle, I guess.
But the game, like, I think the game moves along so fast.
It's a short game. This is not a very long game. If you pick up and play this game, this is like, if you've never played it before, it's a 10-hour game, I would say, which in the Zelda world is short. Not counting like the first 2 games or even A Link to the Past, but like anything after that, this is one of the shortest Zelda games, I would say.
Yeah. And so like the time you're spending in the later half of the game is a little bit smaller than the beginning, where they're kind of setting things up and you're collecting all the things you're going to need.
Yeah.
They do with each dungeon. I guess I should say it with the story, I don't really think of it as like a big story stuff, but before pretty much every dungeon there is kind of, it's like every Zelda game where there's a little thing you got to do. I just don't think about it as much. Like with the Thieves Town, you got to learn the song. You got to blow up the bomb to go to the swamp, the palace. You know, not all of them have this, but there is a little bit.
I think everyone has something. Like you got to get the turtles to get the turtle.
The turtles.
You got to go through the dark to get to the dark palace. You got to go through the where you got to hide from the guards.
Oh, the stealth section.
Yeah,
you kind of got to navigate in the desert, up in the mountains. So, and it feels natural. You know what I mean? It doesn't, because the areas are kind of all, they're all kind of accessible, even though it is like, this is the desert section, this is kind of the swamp section. Like, it does feel like you go there and then the things are just there in the world. It's not, other than Hilda being like, look out, like someone doesn't come up to you and go like, hey, now it's time to collect the turtles, and you can't do anything but that. You know, you can still explore around the area. Right. You can leave. You can come back. So it's good in that regard, I would say.
So let's move on to the gameplay and the combat.
Yeah.
You gave it a 5, and I'm already visualizing you just using your tornado rod every single time to stun every enemy. That's your favorite item in this game,
yeah, I only recently discovered that in our one playthrough of it. Yeah, I do really like using that weapon.
Yeah, well that'll jump into the items, but yeah,
it's not even my favorite. You know, like it's not my favorite playing Zelda game, but you can't deny that it feels pretty good.
Yeah, it feels clean.
Yeah.
It's not as like I think I gave the gameplay of A Link to the Past a 4 because I don't feel it feels as polished as some of the other 2D games. Mm-hmm. Like the Oracle's Link's Awakening.
Those are kind of my favorite 2D.
Yeah. So this is still, it plays like a 2D game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little like I think it's on par with A Link to the Past actually. The gameplay. You can move in 4 directions though, which is nice.
The whole range of motion, you've got that. But then I was also thinking like it's got great puzzles. I think it's got the whole like wall merging mechanic is really fun.
That's really the gimmick of this game too. At the end of the day, and it's to me it's unique. It makes you like rethink a lot of the puzzles, like how to solve this. But it also doesn't. I don't think it's not very like oppressive. Where it's like it's not overwhelming to the game, like where it's overused a little bit. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like you can hate this gimmick and still enjoy this game. If that makes sense. Yeah,
it's just it's incorporated very well. It doesn't like there are certain areas you go to and it's like here's a little wall puzzle or whatever. But overall, it doesn't feel like it's not like. Here's the part of the game where you do the wall. It's just integrated so well into it, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like now you got to be a wolf.
Yeah.
And, you know.
The darn wolf.
That's always gonna come back. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there any puzzles like that were like overly complicated with the walls? I mean, a lot of them I remember being. The Tower of Hera comes to mind. I feel it uses it very well because you're constantly merging onto platforms that get risen up.
Yeah.
You know, it's like then you get on a platform and then you step on the platform like and it takes you even higher. Like there's a lot of stuff like that where it's not tricky. You have to think about it for a second and it clicks right away.
Yeah.
Like nothing's too hard.
There's a couple harder ones that are bonuses, I feel like. Some of the treasure hunter areas.
Yeah.
They're still not too bad, but I like those. This isn't like an extra kind of additional challenge, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it feels really good. The mechanic is integrated well.
Mm-hmm. But I would say the gameplay, it ties, because the items and abilities, it ties directly into this, because one of the biggest differences I think in this game compared to prior games is the usage of like the magic meter, or it's more of a stamina meter at this point.
Yes, and I love what they did with that, because there's a lot of conventions in gaming that in the past 10 years have been rethought of like concept like lives and certain inventory things like this in certain types of games where there isn't much of a benefit to being like you have 20 arrows.
Okay.
I don't think, at least in a Zelda game like this.
Okay.
In a modern setting, like the inventory management, it's always just annoying if you're like, I got to use arrows on this and I got no arrows, and it's either, oh, I got to go look around for arrows in pots, or the more recent solution has been, oh, there's a pot with arrows right in here.
Okay.
So why even bother with that? You know what I mean? Like, there are games where that makes sense, but it doesn't. It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
To even mess with that.
Well, especially like magical based weapons, like in A Link to the Past in particular, like I wouldn't use them because it's like, ooh, I want to conserve my magic. And, not that you ever really need it, but like it's expensive to use the fire, in terms of magic, to use the fire rod as a basic weapon. Not in this game. Yeah. Because it's just use it and then wait, and then it'll reload.
It sort of encourages you to use them a little bit more.
So you can use your inventory a lot more. So, if you're scared of every enemy in the game, you just use your tornado rod over and over again. And
it's really helpful, yeah. That's kind of, I do sort of wish they were doled out in a more interesting way or something, because there are just some items that go untouched by me, I feel like.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like I think of like the boomerang in A Link to the Past. You get it, and it's like, some people might not just use it, which is understandable, but you're sort of encouraged at that point. It's all you have other than your sword. Yeah. To mess around with it. And this, it's like you can't really get the boomerang till later, and it's not needed anywhere. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what's the point of the boomerang?
It's purely an optional item in this game. Yeah. And that's a good thing, I think. There's not as many. So I gave the items and abilities a 5, and I'll get into that in a second. Okay. Even though A Link to the Past is my favorite items because there's so many of them, and there's so many optional ones. It doesn't have the optional stuff here, but I like that. Like, I find myself using the ice rod a lot more. Okay. Because you can. I find myself using the some of the, not so much the tornado.
That's a great point. Yeah, I can agree with that.
Where it's not, when I play A Link to the Past back in the day, it's like sword and boomerang are equipped at all times, and then later on it's sword and hookshot and boomerang at all times. And that was just the way it is. And I never, this one, I think there's a little bit more diversity with. Sure, yeah. You can just keep throwing bombs over and over if you want. There's no limitation.
Especially with you can upgrade them all.
And that's the next thing. Yes. Okay. They're actually meaningful upgrades, I feel. Yeah. Like, it's a lot, like the ice rod, it drops the one ice block, but then once you upgrade, it's got the 4, and it becomes way more powerful.
It's very good.
Yeah. And, the nice ice rod, I think it's called.
Oh yeah,
the nice boomerang.
The little names for them are pretty good.
Everything is just nice. Mm-hmm. The nice tornado rod.
Almost every upgrade is good too.
Yeah, some of them I can't think of. Like, what does the nice hook shot do?
It does damage. Okay. I think instead of just stunning.
Yeah. Go faster too, I think maybe.
I would assume so. Probably farther. Yeah. Farther, better, faster, stronger. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love the items, and I think
and the ability is good.
Yep, and the ability is
You've convinced me I should have gone 5.
Yeah, coulda, shoulda, woulda.
I think I did. You sort of touched on it, but kind of lacks the excitement of getting certain items.
There's no, I was waiting when playing this game to get the ether medallion or something, or the bombos medallion. Like, why are these not in the game? And then there's some bad stuff actually in this game too. Like I don't know if this is in the items or more in the collectibles, but like the monster parts.
Oh, to get the potion, yeah. Kind of. I'm sure someone has fun with that, but
I'm pretty sure nobody has fun with that. Like, you just get them. It's like, what am I doing with monster guts and monster horns? Like, yeah. It's kind of a throwback to Skyward Sword with the loot, but like, it's not implemented well. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that took away from it enough to really warrant it.
I just think of like the excitement of like. And this maybe goes into the world too, of like hearing a mysterious hint about finding a treasure at Lake Hylia, and then you go there and you find the ice rod. That's exciting. And then you don't know when you don't use it till way later. You know?
I will say though, and this goes. We'll get into. We'll start talking about the dungeons now. Yeah. I gave it a 4, but tying it back to the items, there are no dungeon items. in this game.
Yeah.
So,
well, all the dungeons have suggested items, though, basically.
they do, yes.
Yeah.
You need the item to complete the dungeon, but like there's no that's like unique to this game, because it's most Zelda games and most dungeons in Zelda games, you go into the dungeon and there's a whatever the first quarter or first third or first half of the dungeon is just basic navigation or whatever combat, and then you get the dungeon item and then you utilize it for most of the. Not this game. Like this one, it's you kind of need a certain item to do that dungeon,
Right.
and then that's not all of them. Like I don't think like Thieves Town, I don't think you need an item if I recall correctly.
I guess not. No.
But that might be the exception because they kind of guide you there right away.
That one, don't they give you the Titan's Mitt or something like that, though?
Well, yeah, some of them have like so every.
That's sort of a dungeon.
I feel like every dungeon has like you get the Hylian Shield or you get like the Master Ore or you
It's got
get
something to find in
Titan's
there.
Mitt or Power Glove. Yeah, there's some little things in there or a tunic upgrade.
Right. Yeah.
But you don't actually need to get any. Well, not most of that you can skip.
I think some of them do. They just do an awesome job of incorporating the item too, because it still has a good navigational feel without that, because you can still do that, but now it's puzzle focused around that item. So while this one might not be harder than this one, like you're doing a totally different thing in there.
Yeah.
So you're kind of exploring a different puzzle item mechanic,
Right.
Like I think of the one that stands out the most to me because it's so unique is the Palace of Darkness, because it's based around the combination of bombs and your lantern.
Yeah.
Which is like that's really creative, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that. I felt like that was a step up. I think some of them are not as good as maybe their Link to the Past counterparts.
I would agree.
But they're all good.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no stinkers here, I don't think.
Yeah.
I did talk about the ice runes a little bit being a little more complex. I will say though, you mentioned the Palace of Darkness, or Dark Palace, I think it's called in this one. Whatever it's called. There is the one puzzle in that one that stumped me, that I was not able to get.
Is it for the Master Ore?
For the Master Ore.
Okay.
There's the two switches, and one of them raises the platform, and the switch that's off screen further down flips the wall.
Yeah.
That one, and you gotta stand against the wall and flip it to get to the room with the treasure chest.
It's hard to see because it's dark.
Well, it's impossible to see. It's off screen.
Yeah.
So you gotta like throw a bomb, wait, and see the results.
Uh-huh.
But did you get stumped by this one?
I think I figured it out, but now I don't know because it's been so many years and I've played it so many times.
This was one where I couldn't figure it out. So I got the game, before it came out, and there was no guide yet or anything. I'm literally writing the guide. I'm like, I cannot get that treasure chest. I cannot figure it out. I cannot get it. I think I have to wait until the next day where everybody got the game. Then I'm like, all right, what do we do? How do we get this? And then somebody figured it out, or I used the Prima guide or something.
Well,
I don't know if that was a good puzzle or not.
I like doing it, but I can't tell you about figuring it out because I don't have to figure it out
anymore. Yeah. Once you know it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
there are some. You mentioned the wall merging in Tower of Hera. I think that was probably to me the most successful one of like having the gimmick in a dungeon and also kind of exceeding the original, because it really. There's also like they were big on pushing the 3D aspect of this game. I remember before it came out there was a trailer for it that you could download on your 3DS and watch in 3D, and they showed a lot of gameplay in Tower of Hera
where they launch Link up and he like comes up at the screen almost.
And so I remember downloading that and getting so excited.
Okay.
And I think I still like that's still a highlight for me because you're climbing up the tower taller and taller. Hyrule Castle too, and you're seeing the world on the outside. You could see the overworld. So I think that one is cool. But then I think there's other places like I think of Skull Woods in A Link to the Past, and how navigating the overworld is so much a part of it. In this they do that, but you go out.
I don't like the Skullwoods in this one.
You go out into the forest, but then there's only really one place you ever need to drop down. The other ones will just be like, you drop down,
it's like a
treasure, you got to go back up and go to the right one. It feels like they did this in a lot of dungeons where they like, because in A Link to the Past you could go and get really lost, and go off on a tangent somewhere and find some keys or whatever, but then backtrack. They really tried to limit that. I think that was to appeal to more modern kind of sensibilities.
There's a few dungeons where I think the Eastern Palace is one, where it's like you get to the bottom floor, you can go right or left. You don't have to do both. They both give you a key and get to where you need to go, but like you don't have to do both. I think the Dark Palace is that way as well.
That one though has a lot of like you got to go up, drop down. From different areas. It's still like a lot of the areas you drop down, it's just to get treasure, but I think that one is really good because it does utilize the floors really well and going up. But yeah, I like my backtracking in dungeons and going to the different areas and remembering where I need to go. And even in this, I think maybe the Ice Palace is like the worst one, but even that I feel like you can power through, and it's, like you don't really have to ever pull up the map, you know what I mean?
No, you really don't.
The
Ice Ruins, you get the boss key, I believe, immediately, right?
I love when they do that in dungeons. So.
There's also a bad treasure chest in the Ice Ruins. It's in the first room.
That's when you got to use the map.
You gotta you start moving down the platform and then you walk against the wall and there's like a gold rupee there. You know that one?
Yeah, it's like, unbelievable.
It's right, yes, unbelievable. Good reference. All right, let's move on to the enemies and the bosses. I was kind of not sure about this one.
Okay.
So part of me loved just the upgraded designs, the nostalgia factor of the enemies, really, from A Link to the Past. Because I think almost every single enemy from A Link to the Past is in this game.
Sure, yeah.
With, I think, very few new ones, actually, if any, actually.
There's some new ones, but
not many. And they're fun. I like the new designs. And it was like a trip down memory lane a little bit. But it was like sort of like with the Low Rule and the Dark World, like, is this new enough kind of thing?
Okay.
I'd like to see a little bit more. And I think that translated to the bosses a little bit. Although the bosses were a lot of them were takes on old Link to the Past bosses, I feel.
Yeah.
Like
there were a lot of redos, I think.
Almost all of them, actually. A couple, like obviously Blind is the same. Well, not the same.
It's not the same, but yeah.
I
get what you're saying.
The guy, Argus, is the same.
Moldorm
is pretty identical. Some of them I don't remember their names because their names are so similar to the Link to the Past name. But
like Dark Stair is one, right?
Yeah. I think that's one of What did you think about the enemies and bosses?
The average enemy is fine and good. For me, sure, but I rated it high because I thought of some real standout ones I liked. I did like the blind fight a lot better than the original one. There's a good mix. There's some I don't like as much as other ones, but I personally liked Yuga and the different boss fights of Yuga. I like each one individually, and as a whole, I think it's great. So that's really was what was pulling that one for me. I didn't think it was the best boss in any Zelda game, but I thought it was really strong. The first one is a good, basic, simple first boss battle. It's better than, a lot of first boss battles, honestly, even though it's still pretty simple.
No, it's pretty good, actually.
The one in Hyrule Castle is kind of a cool midway point.
I always got annoyed by that one, actually, because I don't know which Yuga to hit.
I never do. Sometimes I struggle with that, and it's annoying. But I really like the final boss fight. I like the Yuga Ganon, whatever. I like that final fight. I think it's one of the better ones in Zelda. So,
so this is one of those cases where nostalgia. I love Ganon from A Link to the Past. It's my favorite Ganon.
Yeah.
I love the model. And, we kind of half got that. This is one where it's like, I wanted that. I wanted the nostalgia.
I don't like Ganon in this, really.
Oh, okay.
In this game, I mean. Like, I don't really like you, Ganon, that much. The fight is good, but just the concept, like Ganon needing to be there, it didn't take away from it for me. Like in some people make those claims about like Twilight Princess or something that he feels kind of thrown in. This is totally different because they it's mentioned like right away in the game, or like right at that point where then you have all the other dungeons ahead of you, and there's honestly not too much stock put in Yuga before that. Where you're like, wow, he's incredible. You know, it's not like they cut down an amazing villain or anything for this, so it doesn't take away necessarily from it. But I'm sort of with you where it's like, I just don't. He just is kind of there, and I don't really like the design of you, Ganon, that much.
It's the design that does it, because I like Blue Ganon, Pig Ganon, whatever boar, and then he gets like becomes purple with like the hair, like he gets you Ganon, like Yuga takes over Ganon. I don't know.
I guess you couldn't just fight Ganon again.
It wouldn't make sense. Well, they probably could have made it make sense. But.
Well, they sort of made it so you fought him again. But yeah, I don't know. It was. In terms of, I actually like the fights, and I liked his character enough. So I put it pretty high. And then, there's just some other cool bosses, but I guess we could have used maybe some new enemies or something like that.
Some of the bosses are, I'm like rethinking this a little bit. Maybe I could have gone to 4, but there's some good bosses. A lot, some of the bosses in this game got reused in Triforce Heroes as well. I think of the boss of the House of Gales.
What's that guy's deal? Like
I don't know what he's called. Spinny, but
I don't love
I believe
that
same boss or something incredibly similar is in Triforce Heroes as well.
Okay.
I remember throwing people onto him.
He's fine. There's a lot of good. There's like mini bosses and stuff too in this that are all fun. I think for the most part. So
yeah,
some
solid bosses.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the side content and extras. And this is a very interesting one because you and I both gave it a perfect 5.
Yeah.
But the community,
a 3.3,
and the staff, a 3.6. So this was the lowest score from both the community and the staff.
I can't even imagine what people don't like about it.
So I think this has got everything. Number 1, it's got those little optional mini dungeons that you kind of talked about, touched on.
Little fun puzzles, yeah.
And I think they're a lot of fun. Number 2, I think the collectibles are solid. There's the hearts, there's the master ore, there's the Mai are the big one, and it's I think one of the best of the like collectathon kind of.
I think it's the best one, honestly, hands down, for so many reasons. I think. We saw it when we were playing through the way it's marked out on the map. Each area is segmented, and okay, I've cleared this area, and it encourages you like, oh, I got 3 more here. I gotta get them.
Yep.
And then they got the noise, so you can find almost all of them. I would say all of them, like easily
without a guide, nothing. Yep.
They're just good hidden collectibles.
Yep.
And then. We talked about the upgrades already.
The rewards are great, too.
Every 10, you get a great upgrade. And then the final people always complain, which I don't normally care. People complain that, like, when you get 100 gold Skulltulas or 900 Koroks, that the reward isn't great. But in all of these games, you are already so powerful at that point that what could they possibly give you that would actually impact the game? Like, at this point, especially if you got full hearts, double damage like an Ocarina of Time, you got all the magic you can get. What could they give you beyond, like, the Fierce Deities mask or something that you just destroy everything? And then when you get something like that, people complain that it's too powerful.
Yeah.
This one actually has a great reward for that, though, because you get that cool spin attack that kills everyone, or some people it doesn't kill. It does a lot of damage, though. Yeah. Which is great, though.
And it's not only that, it's just there's no, like you mentioned the Skulltulas. It's like you get a reward at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, then 100. What? Like, what happened to 60 through 90? Like,
exactly.
This one, there's an award every 10. It's fantastic.
When you get that spin attack, you'll kill tons of enemies, but there's still big ones, too, that it's going to take... You can't just still flub it, you got to fight them still, so...
And that's not it. There's more to this. There's also the Treacherous Tower.
Yeah.
Which I like it. I love the enemy gauntlets. I like them in most Zelda games, but I think this one does it actually better because it's kind of fast paced. I think of like the Savage 11. The Cave Ordeal is kind of a little slower than
It's my favorite version of that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's my favorite, but it's probably. I think I like the Take 'Em All On challenge a little bit.
Okay.
But no, it's fantastic. And then there's even more. There's some fun mini games in this one too.
Oh
I like the Kuko game.
Of
where
course.
you're and the music is playing. There's Octo Baseball.
Hylian Hotfoot. The race.
Okay, yeah.
That's a good one.
So some good, and then to top it off even more, this has probably got one of the best, I think, hero mode.
Oh,
modes.
sure, yeah.
It's got the 4 times damage, the no hearts, and it's a legitimate challenge. So like between bonuses in game, difficulty, and it's got the whole 9 yards, I think, for the side content.
Yeah.
So community out there and staff, what were you thinking here?
I want to know, yeah, what don't people
What's
like?
bad about this? Yeah.
I can't even imagine what it is that people don't like.
I want to go back and look at what, we got a 3.3 from the community on this, and where did it go wrong? How does that compare with the other games?
Yeah.
Who's out there saying that the collectibles in Wind Waker are better than this or the side content? But anyway,
Our flag has been planted. I mean, that's still a fine score, I guess, but
yeah. But we
on.
loved it. Anything else to add, or did I not?
I think you said everything. Yeah, I mean, there's you did say the one thing that sucks is the monster parts.
Yes.
And
yeah,
but it doesn't take away from it.
Yeah, that brings it to a 4.9 to me. But
yeah, I like that all the dungeons have all these extra rupees and chests. That's the reason you would want to look at your map, is to find that stuff.
We probably should have mentioned this at some point, maybe in gameplay, but the rupee system is totally different in this too, because the renting of the items.
If you die, you lose them.
Yeah.
So these extra, they throw a ton of rupees at you in this game, but you need them.
You do, especially because you can rent the items, but then you want to buy them if you want to upgrade them. So the economy of this game is also really good.
Yeah. Solid economy.
Yeah,
that should be
a category. All right, 11 categories.
Yeah,
the world, gameplay, the economy. Wow. All right, let's jump over to music and sound. This was a tough one for me to rank, and I think I've said
that's surprisingly low for you.
I think I say this about almost everyone, but this is one of those where I just rank it compared to the other games.
Okay.
And because I feel if I just I feel like every Zelda game would be a 4 or 5 in terms of soundtrack.
Yeah, I think that's true. You see it from my strategy.
Yeah, and this might be my nostalgia glasses on here, where I love the A Link to the Past soundtrack, and sometimes where there's the A Link Between Worlds counterparts to this, I just feel like I prefer the original. The ending theme, the low roll.
I think that's true of pretty much all those songs that they redid. To me, they sound like how the graphics look.
Okay.
Where it's okay, that there are other games that have remixed the themes from previous games and done them better, but I don't think this is the case for a single one of the old songs.
Yeah, I will say there's some cool. There's a lot of new tracks that are amazing.
Yes, that's why I went high, because I started going through the dungeon themes.
Okay.
And they're amazing.
Well, they all have unique ones, which is
that's
different.
A step up. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's also any personal standouts.
I think of the Desert Palace.
Okay.
Is really spooky and cool.
It's got an Egyptian vibe to it, right?
Right, yeah, totally. That's probably my favorite one, and obviously Low Rule Castle is, I think, one of the best songs in the whole game.
Hilda's theme is pretty good too.
Hilda's theme is good, yeah.
Yeah, the Swamp Palace is also kind of mystical, I would say.
Yeah, it's definitely mystical.
Yeah, there's also a cool thing, when you're in Low Rule, the overall theme, it changes later in the game.
Oh, right.
I think after you beat all the 7 dungeons, then it's more of a orchestra version of it.
Yeah, because when you first start, it's more acoustic sounding. There's guitars and acoustic guitar. Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. But there definitely is some really good songs. But like it's probably in the middle of the road in terms of my favorite soundtracks. Because I think A Link to the Past is better. I think Ocarina of Time is better. I think Wind Waker is better.
There are a lot of games I would put above it, even though I gave it a 4. But that's because, like I said, like you kind of said, a lot of Zelda soundtracks are a 4 and a 5.
Yeah. But that being said, our staff, 4.4. They nailed it.
They loved it. Yeah.
So
Wow.
that brings us to our totals, and I was shocked a little bit how
You ranked it lower than most people.
well, not so much like one thing
you scored it lower than most
one thing we're realizing is like sort of we just talked about with music and sound, like the actual numbers I think between you and I don't really matter, but it's more so how that ranks compared to the other games.
On our other, yeah.
Yeah, because I think we have a little bit different mindset. I imagine the staff and community as collective, entities probably view the same way. But what's interesting about this is look where it's slotted in the different games, in the different spots.
Yeah.
So the community ended up giving it a 3.8, but that slots it all the way at the number 6 slot. Like, better than Minish Cap. I like that the community, by the way, is like, it's getting really bunched. There's a 3.6, a 3.7, a 3.8, 3.
Yeah.
So there's not much room for, it's bunched in there.
We're gonna get to the decimals eventually.
Yeah, or we're already in there with the 3.9s.
Oh, fair enough.
But then the staff, look where that came out. It's a number 2 game.
Oh, wow.
Egregiously above A Link to the Past.
Wow, yeah. That's pretty bad there.
It's pretty bad.
Pretty bad to even do that.
So we got a 6th place. Staff has it at 2. It ended up being number 2 on my list as well, just behind.
And you gave it the same score as the community. But it's your number 2, but they're number 6, which is kind of fun.
My whole scale is lower. I think I'm more of a nitpicker than the community.
You're more critical.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But yeah, there's my and then you gave it, you're more in the middle of the pack here, where it ended up being 4th place on your list.
Yeah, but it still works for me, I think, with what I'm saying. Now I'm seeing 4 and up is kind of like the games I really love.
Okay.
Like I see if we're starting from like Minish Cap and up are all games that I think are good, pretty good. And then when we get to 4, it's like these are the best ones in the series.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm interpreting my list.
So the observation I made is the community has A Link to the Past 2 slots above A Link Between Worlds. The staff has A Link Between Worlds 2 slots above A Link to the Past. So
okay.
And then I, of course, have A Link to the Past at the top. And then you have A Link to the Past notably above A Link Between Worlds. It's like
the same, yeah.
Yeah. So the staff is the oddball here one. So I think the Zelda Dungeon staff.
What do you guys have to say for yourselves?
You've done goofed, right?
Well, what really made the difference? It's the music and sound.
4.4. I don't know if that one made the big difference because I feel the music and sound is all like if you look back,
it's always high. Okay,
it's always a little bit higher. There's no other than the side content. 3.6 is the lowest. Like if you look back at Majora's Mask, I imagine. One thing to note. This Definitive Ranking series is going across such a large gap of time.
Yeah.
Like, we probably have about 15%, 20% different staff on the team now compared to January. So I wonder if we put out a poll for Twilight Princess right now where it would fit.
That's true. I guess we'll just always have to keep doing them.
Yeah. Once we finish the Definitive Ranking series, we'll just go to Twilight Princess again and re-rank. This is a never-ending series.
As the rest of our lives.
It will end eventually, but not next month. Because we're doing something a little different next month.
Yeah.
I don't know how this is going to work with the scale, and it's totally up for your interpretation. But for the month of November, we are covering Four Swords Anniversary.
Yes.
The original Four Swords. If anybody out there has ever played it or not.
Not Adventures.
Yeah.
Four Swords.
So this is one. It originally packaged with the A Link to the Past and then was released as a 10-year anniversary for the... that was the Nintendo 3DS when it first came out. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people probably have never played this one, I imagine, because it's not very accessible. You cannot go and download it right now, which is an egregious error by Nintendo, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But if you have played it, we have the poll in the description below. And go ahead and voice your opinion. And I know some of the categories are a little blurrier.
People might take issue with that.
Use your interpretation, whatever you want.
Whatever you think a dungeon is, or whatever.
Yeah. Just whatever you think a music and sound is.
If that game even has that, I don't know.
Okay, that one it does. World, art style, story,
It's up to, these are all purely interpretational, and we're fitting it onto our Zelda scale.
Yeah, we were thinking about maybe we should change the categories for some of these, but we're like, you know what? We've made it.
We've decided this is the criteria for a good Zelda game.
Except economy is not there.
Well, we're gonna have to work that in.
Yeah.
Maybe we can axe dungeons. That's not important.
Maybe when we get back to Twilight Princess, after we've got all the other games,
include economy.
We'll go to 11 categories, include economy. So, all right. Well, that's gonna do it for this month, and we'll see you guys in November for some Four Swords or Four Swords Anniversary, whatever version,
whatever you got,
whatever you've played. All right, guys, take care.